If you want him, I leave. Someone inside my own organization gave the order to kill you 5 years ago, before I disappeared. That's why I left. Not.
You could have told me.
You're right.
The doors behind Brielle blow open before the priest finishes the question. Men in black flood the aisle first, then him. If you want him, Jae-min says, not raising his voice, I leave. Marcus's hand tightens on hers hard enough to bruise. For 5 years she believed his fear was about losing her. Now she watches his face, and understands it was always about this man walking back into a life Marcus thought he'd helped bury. Every eye in the church moves from the groom beside her, to the husband she buried without a body, without a goodbye, without one word in 5 years. Her mouth is still shaped around a vow she never finished. She doesn't finish it now either. She asks the only question she has left. Where were you? Jae-min doesn't answer right away. He walks. Slow, deliberate, down the center aisle like the church belongs to him, and everyone in the pews are guests he tolerates. His men fan out along the walls, hands folded, faces blank. Nobody in the church moves. Somebody's phone clatters to the floor near the third pew, and nobody bends to pick it up. Brielle's mother, seated in the front row, presses a hand to her chest. Her stepfather's jaw works like he's chewing on something he can't swallow. Marcus finds his voice first. Security. It comes out thin. He clears his throat and tries again, louder, aimed at no one in particular, because there is no security in this church that can do anything about 8 armed men in tailored black. Someone call. Nobody's calling anyone. Jae-min stops at the base of the altar steps. He looks at Marcus the way a man looks at something he stepped in. Not anger. Something colder. Bell. Marcus's grip on Brielle's hand goes slack, then tightens again. Wrong this time. Grabbing instead of holding. Jae-min. We all thought. I know what you thought. Jae-min's eyes haven't left Brielle's face since he stopped walking. That's not why I'm here. Brielle pulls her hand free of Marcus's. He lets her, finally, fingers uncurling like they've forgotten how to do anything else. 5 years, she says. Her voice doesn't shake. She's proud of that, distantly, the way you're proud of a small thing, while a large thing is collapsing around you. 5 years, and you walk in here. Today, now. I know the timing is. Don't. She holds up a hand. Behind her, she can feel Marcus not moving, the priest not moving, an entire church of people who came to watch her get married, now watching her get unmade instead. Don't tell me about timing. You don't get to have an opinion on timing. A muscle moves in his jaw. It's the only thing that moves in his whole body. You're right. That stops her. She expected an argument. 5 years of imagining this moment. And she has imagined it. More than she's ever admitted to anyone, including her own reflection. And in every version, he explains himself. He justifies. He tells her a story with an ending that makes sense. He doesn't just agree with her. I'm not here to make you come with me, Jae-min says. I'm here because I couldn't let this happen without you knowing you had a choice. A choice? Brielle laughs, short and without humor. And here's how close it is to a sob. You want to talk to me about choice? Marcus finds something in himself. Anger, or the wreckage of his composure reforming into anger, because anger is easier to stand inside than fear. You don't get to walk in here and lecture anyone about choice, Kang. You disappeared. You let her. He stops himself, but not soon enough. Jae-min turns his head, slow, and looks at him. Let her what, Marcus? Silence. Marcus's throat works. Finish it, Jae-min says. I didn't mean. You started a sentence. Finish it. Brielle watches this exchange like watching 2 men speak a language she almost understands, close enough to catch the shape of the words but not the meaning underneath them. Marcus's fear in this church is not the fear of a man losing a woman he wants to marry. She has been engaged to him for 4 months, and she has never once seen him afraid. Not when the lawyers came for her stepfather's business, not when her mother wept in his office begging for more time. He handled all of it with the flat, controlled patience of a man who has never lost anything he decided to keep. He is not that man right now. You knew, Brielle says slowly, and it isn't really a question, though it comes out shaped like one. You knew who he was. This whole time. You knew about, she gestures, helpless, at the men lining the walls, at the church that has gone from wedding to standoff in under a minute. Marcus doesn't answer. That's an answer. Marcus, it's not what you think. he says, and even he seems to hear how thin that sounds against everything currently happening in front of 300 witnesses. Jae-min's voice cuts through, quiet and even. It's exactly what she thinks. You don't know what she thinks, Marcus snaps, some of his nerve returning now that he has an easier target. You don't know anything about her. Not anymore. 5 years, Kang. 5 years and you think you can just... I know she brought food to Sung-min every night he pulled overnight security. Even in winter. Even when I told her she didn't need to. Jae-min says it flat. Not performing. Just stating something true. I know she remembers the names of people other people don't bother learning. I know she stayed with my driver on the floor of a garage for 40 minutes, holding pressure on a wound because no one else would touch him. His eyes finally leave Marcus and go back to her. I know her. That's not the question. Brielle's chest is tight in a way that has nothing to do with the dress, with the boning stitched into the bodice, with any of the physical facts of standing at an altar in white. She has spent 5 years building a version of herself that doesn't need anyone to know her that well. She built it carefully, brick by brick, and he just walked in and named 3 things she thought no one had ever noticed. Then what is the question, she says. Jae-min looks at her for a long moment. Something moves behind his eyes. Not hesitation exactly. More like a man deciding how much truth a room can survive. Someone inside my own organization gave the order to kill you, he says it plainly. No drama in the delivery, which somehow makes it worse. 5 years ago, before I disappeared, that's why I left. Not because I stopped wanting to be your husband. Because I found out you were a target, and staying near you was the fastest way to get you killed. The church doesn't gasp. It's too stunned for that. It just goes silent in a different register, a silence with weight to it. Brielle's mother makes a small sound in the front pew. Her stepfather puts a hand on her shoulder. You could have told me, Brielle says. Her voice cracks on the last word. The first crack in 5 years of careful control, and she hates it. Hates that he's the one who put it there again. Telling you would have made you a witness to a threat you couldn't defend against. It would have made you more of a target, not less. Jae-min takes one step up onto the lowest altar stair, close enough now that she can see he hasn't slept properly in longer than a night. I made a choice for you because I thought it would keep you alive. I was right about that part. I was wrong about everything else. Everything else, she repeats. I should have found a way to let you choose too. His voice doesn't waver, but something underneath it does. I didn't. That's mine to carry, not yours. Marcus, forgotten for a moment, finds his footing again, recognizes, maybe, that the longer this conversation continues without him in it, the more irrelevant he becomes to the outcome. This is insane. You expect her to just, what, walk out of her own wedding because a criminal shows up with soldiers and a sob story? He turns to Brielle, and his voice softens into something almost pleading, almost the man she agreed to marry 4 months ago, out of exhaustion and fear for her mother's house. Brielle, look at me. This man let you believe he was dead. For 5 years. Whatever reason he's giving you right now, whatever performance this is, it doesn't erase that. It's not a performance, Jae-min says, without heat. Then prove it. Marcus's eyes are wild now, calculation and panic running together. Tell her everything. Tell her who ordered it. Tell her why you're really here today, of all days. Marcus. Marcus? Jae-min's voice doesn't rise, but something in it changes register, goes flat and final, in a way that makes even his own men go still along the walls. I would be careful about how many questions you ask me right now, in front of her, about things you already know the answer to. Marcus's mouth closes. Brielle looks between them, the man she married at 19 and buried without a body, and the man she agreed to marry out of desperation, watching fear move across his face like weather, and she understands, with the sick clarity of a door swinging open onto a room she didn't know existed, that Marcus's fear tonight was never really about losing her. You knew him, she says again, quieter now, almost to herself. Before tonight, you knew exactly who was going to walk through that door. Marcus doesn't deny it this time. He just looks at Jae-min, and something passes between the two men that has nothing to do with her at all. Old, ugly, unfinished. Jae-min holds out his hand to her, not grabbing, not pulling, just offering, palm up, at the bottom of the altar steps, in front of everyone she has ever known. You don't have to decide anything right now, he says. You don't have to come with me. You don't have to forgive me. I need you to know you're allowed to say no to both of us, if that's what you want. Brielle looks down at his hand, then at Marcus, whose face has gone the color of the church walls, then at her mother, frozen in the front pew, and the wedding dress she is still wearing, and the ring already sitting cold and unfamiliar on her finger. She doesn't take Jae-min's hand. She doesn't go back to Marcus's either. You said someone in your own organization, she says. Who? Jae-min's jaw tightens. That's not a church conversation. I just found out my husband let me bury him for 5 years to protect me from people I didn't know existed, standing next to a man I'm starting to think helped make that happen. Her voice is steady again, steadier than she feels. 5 years of discipline holding the line even now. I think I've earned a church conversation. Behind her, one of the men near the door speaks low into a comm unit clipped inside his collar. 3 words she doesn't catch, and every man along the wall goes half a degree more alert. The kind of shift you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. Jae-min doesn't answer her question. He looks past her, toward the doors, and for the first time since he walked in, something like worry crosses his face. We need to go now, all of us. His eyes cut to Marcus, including him. Whether he likes it or not. Marcus takes a step back. Go where? I'm not going anywhere with. Someone knows I'm here, Jae-min says, already turning toward the doors, already reaching for Brielle's arm without quite touching it, waiting for permission. That means someone else knows exactly where to find both of you. Nobody moves for a full 3 seconds. Then Jae-min's hand closes around Brielle's wrist, not hard, but final, and the church breaks apart into motion. His men peel off the walls in pairs. One kills the lights over the altar. Another is already at the side door, head tilted toward whatever's coming through his earpiece. I'm not going anywhere until someone tells me what's happening, Brielle says, planting her feet, and for a second, the whole operation stutters around her stillness. You're going somewhere safe. That's what's happening. Jae-min doesn't let go of her wrist, but he doesn't pull either. We can fight about the rest of it once we're not standing in a building with 4 exits and no cover. I'm not a package, Jae-min. I know exactly what you are. His eyes hold hers for a beat too long, given everything happening around them. That's why I need you moving. Marcus, 3 feet away, looks between the emptying pews and the men now flanking the doors, and something in his face decides that fear of the unknown outweighs fear of the known. I'm not getting in a car with these people. Then stay, Jae-min says, already turning away from him. See how that works out. They move her mother and stepfather out through the side entrance first, 2 of Jae-min's men walking them to a car Brielle doesn't recognize, black and unmarked, engine already running. Brielle catches her mother's face through the window, not frightened exactly, but old in a way it wasn't 20 minutes ago, like the last 5 years just caught up with her all at once. Marcus gets in the second car. He doesn't have a choice, not really. 2 men close in on either side of him with the kind of patience that isn't really patience, and he goes, jaw clenched, silent. Brielle ends up in the third car, and Jae-min gets in beside her, and the door shuts, and for the first time in 5 years, they are alone in a small space with nowhere else to look. The car pulls away from the church. Neither of them speaks for 4 blocks. Say something, she says finally, staring straight ahead. You didn't fly across an ocean and walk into my wedding with an army to sit here in silence. I don't know where to start. Start with the part where you let me think you were dead. Her voice is low, controlled, the same voice she uses on frightened patients right before a procedure they don't want. Start there. He's quiet for a moment. When he speaks, it's careful, like he's laying each word down and checking it holds weight before adding the next. There was a message. 11 months after I left. It said you'd been killed in a car accident outside your mother's apartment. He doesn't look at her when he says it. I believed it for 6 days. Brielle's stomach drops somewhere below the floor of the car. 6 days. I found out it wasn't true on the 7th. His hands are flat on his knees, still, like he's forcing them to be still. By then I understood 2 things. Someone wanted me to think you were dead, so I'd stop protecting you from a distance, and whoever sent that message had access to information only a handful of people should have had. So it was real. The threat. She says it slowly, testing the shape of it. The whole time. The whole time. She turns to face him fully, for the first time since the car doors closed. And you never once thought, in 5 years, that maybe I deserved to know I was in danger. That maybe I could have made decisions about my own life, with actual information, instead of grief. I thought about it every day. That's not an answer. No, he agrees. It isn't. The silence that follows isn't empty. It's loaded. The kind that comes right before something gets said that can't be unsaid. Did you ever come back? Brielle asks. Quiet now, smaller than she means it to sound. In 5 years, did you ever come back and look at me and decide not to say anything? His jaw works. Outside the window, the city slides by, unfamiliar streets in the dark. Once, he says. Brielle goes very still. 18 months ago, your mother collapsed outside a hospital. A fainting spell, low blood pressure, nothing that put her in real danger, but you didn't know that yet when you ran out after the ambulance. His voice stays level, but something underneath it isn't. I was 3 blocks away for an unrelated reason. I heard where the ambulance was headed and I went. You were there. I stood across the street. You were crying on the curb waiting for a cab because your car was in the shop. I watched you for 11 minutes. Brielle's hands, folded in her lap, curl into fists. 11 minutes. I told myself I was making sure you were safe to leave. That was true for the first 2 minutes. He finally looks at her. It wasn't true for the other 9. Why? The word comes out cracked open, nothing controlled left in it. You were right there. I needed someone that night, and you were standing across the street, watching me cry on a curb, and you just left? Because if I crossed that street, I would have needed a reason to explain why I was in the city, and any reason I gave you would have put you back on a list I'd spent a year and a half trying to get you off of. His voice doesn't break, but it's close, tighter than she's heard it since he walked into the church. I told myself that was protecting you. I've had 18 months to sit with the fact that it might have just been me being a coward about what I'd have to say if you ask me the questions you're asking me right now. The car goes quiet. Brielle looks out the window because she doesn't trust her own face right now, doesn't trust what it's doing. If you were her, if you'd found out the man protecting your life for 5 years had once stood 11 minutes away while you cried alone on a curb and said nothing, would you forgive him? Sit with that, then keep reading. I hate you a little right now, she says finally, still looking out the window. I want you to know that, not for the 5 years, for the 11 minutes. I know. That's worse somehow. The 5 years I can almost understand, the 11 minutes I can't. I don't expect you to understand it. I expect you to know the truth, even the parts that make me look like exactly what I probably am. She turns back to him. And what's that? A man who got good at deciding what's best for you, instead of asking you. He says it flat. No self-pity in it, just fact. I've had 5 years to become very good at that. I don't know how to stop yet. I'm asking you to be patient with me while I figure it out. And I know I don't have any right to ask you for patience. Brielle doesn't answer that. She looks down instead, at her own hands, at the ring on her finger that isn't his, that she still hasn't taken off. What happens to Marcus? She says instead. Something shifts in Jae-min's face. Not surprise. More like he's been waiting for this question and dreading it in equal measure. That depends on what we find. Find where? He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a folded photograph, worn soft at the creases, like it's been handled many times. He holds it out to her. Brielle takes it. In the dim light of the car, she has to angle it toward the window to make out the image. Grainy, clearly taken from a distance, time-stamped in the corner. 2 men standing outside a restaurant she doesn't recognize. One of them is younger, unmistakably Marcus, 5 years younger and less polished, less certain of himself. The other man's face is turned partly away from the camera, but she recognizes the set of his shoulders, the way he stands like he owns the sidewalk under his feet. Who's that? She asks, pointing to the second man. Choi Dae-hyun. He ran the faction inside my organization that gave the order 5 years ago. Jae-min's voice goes very flat, very controlled, the voice of a man keeping something contained by force. That photograph was taken 4 months before I disappeared. Brielle looks up at him slowly. Marcus knew him. Marcus knew him well enough to have dinner with him 4 months before someone inside my organization decided you needed to die. The car goes silent again, but this silence has teeth in it. I need you to think back, Jae-min says, quieter now. Anything Marcus ever said, anything he asked you about me, about us, about where I might have gone, anything that felt strange at the time and you talked yourself out of. Brielle's mind goes back, unwillingly, sifting through 4 months of a courtship built on obligation and exhaustion, looking for cracks she didn't let herself see because she was too tired to look for them. He asked me once, she says slowly, if I still had anything of yours. Letters, photographs, anything with your handwriting on it. Her stomach turns as she says it out loud, hearing how it sounds now, 5 years and 1 church wedding too late. I thought he was being, I don't know, considerate, making sure I didn't feel like I was replacing you with things still around the apartment. Jae-min's face doesn't change, but his hands, still flat on his knees, go rigid. He wasn't being considerate, he says. What was he doing? Before he can answer, the car slows, hard enough that Brielle's hand goes to the door for balance. Up ahead, through the windshield, she can see the second car, the one carrying Marcus, pulled to the curb at an angle that isn't right, driver's door hanging open, one of Jae-min's men standing beside it, with his hand near his jacket, and his eyes scanning the street. Marcus is gone. Gone how? Brielle says, already reaching for the door handle. Jae-min's hand catches hers before she can open it. Stay in the car. He was right in front of us. which is exactly why you're staying in the car. His voice has changed, gone into a register she hasn't heard from him yet tonight. Not cold, but stripped down to something purely functional. He looks past her, out the window, at the man standing beside the empty vehicle. Report. The man's voice comes low through the gap in the window Jae-min cracks open. Door was locked when we stopped for the light. When we checked at the next block, it was open and he wasn't in it. Nobody saw him go. Cameras? Pulling footage now. Jae-min sits back. For the first time since the church, Brielle watches something like real uncertainty cross his face. There and gone in under a second, replaced by the same controlled stillness he's worn all night. He ran, Brielle says. Doesn't that mean something? Innocent people don't run? Or someone helped him disappear before he could tell us anything? Jae-min's jaw tightens. Either way, we just lost him. They don't go back to wherever Jae-min intended to take her. Instead, the car changes direction, and 20 minutes later she's standing in a private room at the back of a clinic she doesn't recognize, sterile and quiet, and a man is lying on a gurney with a bandage soaked through at the shoulder, sweating, awake, eyes tracking Jae-min the second he walks through the door. This is Yoon, Jae-min says. He used to work under Choi. Brielle looks at the man on the gurney, 30-something, hollow-cheeked, the particular exhaustion of someone who's been running for a long time and finally stopped. Used to. He came to us 6 weeks ago, wanted out. Jae-min moves to the bedside, and something passes between the two men, old and wary. He's the reason I know Choi's faction is still active. I want you to hear what he tells me, because I'm done deciding what you get to know. Brielle's chest tightens at that, an apology dressed as an offering, but she doesn't say anything. She steps closer instead. Yoon's eyes move to her, assessing, then back to Jae-min. This is her? The wife. Ask what you need to ask, Jae-min says. Brielle steps forward before Jae-min can do it for her. Who gave the order to kill me? Yoon's mouth tightens. He glances at Jae-min, some old instinct for permission still alive in him even now, and Jae-min nods once. Choi gave the operational order, Yoon says. But Choi doesn't move against family without approval. Not for something that big. Not against the boss's wife. Approval from who? Jae-min says. And there's something underneath the question that tells Brielle he already suspects the answer and hates it. Yoon hesitates. It's the first time he's hesitated since they walked in. I don't have a name, he says. I have a room. A meeting 6 years ago, before I was even fully in. Choi came out of it different, sharper, like he'd been given something he'd been asking for a long time. Yoon's eyes flick to Jae-min, careful now, weighing something. Whoever was in that room, Choi answered to them the way he answered to your father, not the way he answered to some outside contact. The silence that follows has a different weight than any silence in the car earlier. Brielle watches it land on Jae-min's face. Not shock, something worse. Recognition of a shape he's been avoiding looking at directly. Family, Jae-min says, quiet. I don't know that for certain, Yoon says. I know what it looked like from where I was standing. Jae-min doesn't say anything else. He turns and walks out of the room, and Brielle follows him, because staying in a room with a wounded stranger feels wrong, and because 5 years of wanting answers doesn't turn off just because the answers have gotten worse. In the hallway, he stops at a window looking out onto a parking lot, hands braced on the sill, head down. You have a guess, Brielle says. Don't you? You know who he means. I have more than a guess. Jae-min doesn't turn around. I spent 5 years eliminating everyone I thought was responsible. Every name Choi gave up before I had him killed. Every account, every safe house, every soldier loyal to that faction. I was thorough. I was certain I'd found the root of it. But I never once considered someone inside my own family authorized it. Because the alternative was unbearable, so I didn't look there. He finally turns to face her, and for the first time all night he looks less like a man who returned with an army, and more like someone standing in the wreckage of a plan that was never as complete as he told himself it was. Which means whoever ordered your death 5 years ago is still alive, still capable of doing it again. Brielle absorbs that, feels it settle somewhere cold in her chest. And Marcus. Marcus is a symptom, not the disease. Jae-min straightens, and something in his posture changes, the controlled stillness of before hardening into something closer to intent. I need to find him before whoever helped him disappear decides he's more useful dead than talking. They don't have to look long. One of Jae-min's men finds Marcus 40 minutes later, 3 miles from where he vanished, in the back office of a currency exchange that Brielle later learns has been quietly laundering money for the Kang organization's enemies for over a year. He isn't hiding well. He's sitting behind a desk with 2 duffel bags of documents and account records, and when Jae-min walks in, flanked by Brielle and 2 of his men, Marcus doesn't even reach for a weapon. He just sits there, defeated in a way that looks almost like relief. You could have just let me go, he says. I could have. Jae-min agrees. I didn't want to. Marcus's eyes go to Brielle, and something in his face shifts. Not quite apology, something closer to justification. The look of a man rehearsing his defense before he's asked to give it. You don't understand what he is, Brielle. What he'll do to you once the honeymoon of his big dramatic entrance wears off. You think he's rescuing you tonight. He's just repossessing something he decided was his 5 years ago and never stopped believing he owned. That's rich, Brielle says, coming from the man who blackmailed my mother's house, out from under her, to force me to the altar. I did what I had to do to keep you safe from him. Marcus's voice rises, cracks at the edges. You have no idea what his family is, what they're capable of. I was trying to get you somewhere he couldn't reach. By selling information about where I was to the people who wanted me dead, Brielle says, it isn't a question. She's looking at the duffel bags on the desk, at Marcus's face, and putting it together in real time, the way you assemble a wound from the outside in. That photograph. You and Choi. 4 months before Jae-min disappeared. Marcus's jaw works. He doesn't deny it. You told them where I'd be, she says. Quieter now, the fury going somewhere colder and more dangerous than shouting. Didn't you? Some night, 5 years ago, you told Choi's people something that put me in danger, and that's why Jae-min left. That's why I spent 5 years thinking my husband was dead. Because of you. I didn't know they'd try to kill you, Marcus says, and for the first time all night, his composure cracks entirely, something raw underneath it. I was told it was leverage, pressure, a way to make Jae-min compliant, not a way to hurt you. When I found out what they actually planned, it was already moving. I couldn't stop it. So you did what? Jae-min says, voice like ice over deep water. Watched? I sent a warning. Marcus's hands are shaking now. Anonymous. I couldn't risk them knowing it came from me. I don't know if it even reached anyone in time to matter. Jae-min goes very still. A warning. 2 days before the attempt. I don't know if... I left the country 4 days before the attempt, Jae-min says slowly, like he's testing the shape of something that just rearranged itself in his understanding. Because I intercepted a warning. I never knew who sent it. The two men look at each other, and something passes between them that isn't friendship, will never be friendship, but is its own strange, unwilling debt. You're the reason I disappeared in time to save her, Jae-min says. And you're the reason I had to. Marcus doesn't answer that. He looks down at the duffel bags instead, at the records that are about to end whatever life he thought he was building. Who told you it was just leverage? Brielle says. Who did you talk to? Marcus's eyes lift to hers, and something in them goes flat and frightened in a way that has nothing to do with Jae-min, nothing to do with the men standing in the doorway. I need protection before I answer that, he says. Not from him, he nods at Jae-min, from whoever's still out there, because if I say the name out loud in this room, I'm not going to live long enough to regret it. Outside, distantly, through the thin walls of the currency exchange, someone's phone starts ringing. Then another. One of Jae-min's men steps into the doorway, face gone tight, and says 3 words that turn every head in the room. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Jae-min says, already moving toward the door. The man doesn't get to answer. The front window of the currency exchange takes the first shot before he can finish the sentence, glass spraying inward across the reception desk, and everyone in the room hits the floor at once, instinct doing what training hasn't had time to. Down, Jae-min says, unnecessary, his hand already on Brielle's shoulder, pressing her flat behind the desk. Stay down. Gunfire outside, controlled bursts, not panic. Professionals. Marcus scrambles behind an overturned filing cabinet, duffel bags forgotten, face gone the color of the fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Jae-min's men return fire from the doorway in short, disciplined intervals, falling back toward the interior room by room. How many? Jae-min calls to the man nearest the door. 6, maybe 8. They knew exactly where to find us. Jae-min's jaw sets. He looks at Marcus, crouched and shaking behind the cabinet. Who else did you tell you were coming here? No one. I swear to you, no one. Then someone's been tracking you since the church. Jae-min's eyes cut back toward the door, calculating. Or tracking me. A voice comes from outside, amplified, almost bored. Jae-min, you brought her right to me. That was thoughtful. Brielle watches something happen to Jae-min's face that she's never seen before. Not fear, not quite, but a kind of recognition that goes deeper than fear, old and specific. Sang-woo, he says, barely above a breath. Who is that? Brielle asks. My cousin. Jae-min doesn't look away from the door. He was 12 when I was born. Spent his whole life being told he'd have run the family if I hadn't come along first. The shooting stops. In the sudden quiet, Footsteps cross broken glass outside, unhurried. I gave the order 5 years ago, Sang-woo calls, still out of sight, his voice carrying the easy confidence of a man who has never once doubted his own reasoning. Not because I hated her, because I watched what loving her did to you. You went soft, cousin. A man who checks a woman's safety before he checks his own organization's position isn't fit to hold what our grandfather built. I was protecting the family from what you were becoming. You tried to kill an innocent woman, Jae-min says, to prove a philosophical point. I tried to save you from yourself. A pause. It's not too late. Walk out here, alone, and I'll let her live. This was never really about her. Brielle's hand finds Jae-min's arm before he can move, gripping hard. Don't you dare. I'm not planning to, he says, low, only for her. But I need him to believe I might. He starts to rise. Brielle doesn't let go. You don't get to decide this alone, she says. Not again, not tonight. Something in his face breaks open, just slightly, at that. The weight of every choice he's made without her landing at once. I'm not deciding alone. I'm buying us time. There's a difference, and I need you to trust me on this one thing. Right now, more than you've trusted me all night. She lets go. It costs her something to do it, but she lets go. Jae-min steps toward the shattered doorway, hands visible, voice pitched to carry. I'm coming out. What happens next happens fast, faster than Brielle can fully track. Jae-min steps into the open doorway and there's a shot, one, sharp and close, and he goes down hard against the frame, hand clamped over his side, dark red already spreading between his fingers before he even hits the ground. Jae-min. Brielle is moving before she's decided to move, some part of her nursing training taking over where panic would otherwise be, low and fast across the floor to where he's fallen, dragging him back behind the desk by main force, while his men lay down cover fire toward the street. I'm fine, he says, which is a lie, his voice already thinning at the edges. Shut up and let me look. She's got his jacket open, shirt soaked through, her hands finding the wound with the clinical speed of someone who has done this before, in worse light, with less at stake. Through and through, high on his side, missing anything that would kill him fast, but bleeding enough to kill him slow if nobody does anything about it. I need pressure. I need cloth. I need... Marcus, give me your jacket, now. Marcus doesn't argue. He shrugs out of it and shoves it across the floor to her, and Brielle balls it against the wound and presses down hard enough that Jae-min hisses through his teeth. Stay with me, she says, low, fierce, all the fear she hasn't let herself feel all night, finally breaking through in her voice. You do not get to come back after 5 years and die on a currency exchange floor in front of me. Do you understand me? Bossy, he manages, and there's something almost like a smile underneath the pain. You have no idea. Outside, the exchange of gunfire builds and then, abruptly, stops. Brielle hears shouting, several voices, then one voice rising above the others. Sang-woo's, no longer bored, pitched high with something that might be panic. Then silence. Then Jae-min's men are in the doorway, weapons still raised but not firing, and one of them says a name Brielle doesn't fully catch, and something in the tension of the room releases all at once. It's done, the man in the doorway says. He's down. Backup arrived from the west entrance. He didn't have the numbers he thought he had. Jae-min, still on the floor, still bleeding under Brielle's hands, lets his head fall back against the wall with something that isn't quite relief. Not yet. Not until he looks at her and confirms with his own eyes that she's whole. You're okay, he says. It isn't a question so much as a fact he needs to say out loud to believe it. I'm okay. You're the one who walked out into gunfire to buy time for a plan you didn't tell anyone. It worked. That's not the same as it being a good plan. He almost laughs, and it turns into a wince instead, and Brielle presses harder on the wound and tells him to be still, and for a moment, just a moment, in a wrecked room that smells like gun smoke and old paper, it feels almost like something between them has come back online, some old rhythm neither of them lost after all. 3 days later, Brielle sits across from Jae-min in a private room at the clinic where he's recovering, IV line taped to the back of his hand, color mostly back in his face. Her mother's house is safe, Marcus's records, handed over in exchange for protection, dismantled the financial pressure that forced the engagement in the first place. Marcus himself is somewhere Brielle doesn't ask about and doesn't want to know, alive, protected, and no longer anywhere near her life. Jae-min reaches for a folder on the table between them and slides it toward her without a word. Brielle opens it. Divorce papers, already drafted, already signed on his side, leaving only her signature to make it final. Attached behind them, a separate document, a transfer of funds into an account with only her name on it, enough to make her independent of anyone, including him, for the rest of her life if she chose. What is this? She says, though she already knows. Freedom. Actual freedom this time, not the kind I decide for you and hand you after the fact. His voice is quiet, steady despite the IV, despite everything the last 3 days cost him. You don't owe me a marriage because I came back with an army and a sad story. You get to choose. Really choose. Even if the choice is walking away from all of this and never seeing me again. Brielle looks down at the papers for a long moment. Then she sets them aside, unsigned, and looks up at him. That's not what I want, she says. You don't have to decide today. I'm not deciding today. She reaches out and takes his hand instead of the pen. I decided 3 days ago, on a floor covered in glass, when I was pressing my hands against your side, telling you not to die. I just needed you to actually offer me the choice, before I said it out loud, so I'd know it was real. Something in his face changes, unguarded in a way she hasn't seen from him since he was 25 and newly married, and still believed the world was simple enough to protect the people he loved just by trying hard enough. If we do this, Brielle says, it's not the marriage we had before. I'm not the girl who married an arrangement and hoped it turned into something real. You don't get to disappear to protect me ever again without telling me first. Not once. Whatever it costs you to say it out loud, you say it. Understood. I mean it, Jae-min. I know you do. He turns his hand over in hers, holding on properly now, no hesitation in it. I'm not the same man who walked out 5 years ago either. I spent 5 years learning how to protect you by controlling everything around you. I'm going to spend however long you give me, learning how to do it by trusting you instead. Brielle looks at him for a long moment, at the man she buried without a body, without a goodbye, without one word in 5 years, now sitting in a hospital bed with an IV in his hand and nothing left to offer her but the truth and an actual choice. Are you sure, he asks quietly, that this is what you want? She picks up the folder, closes it, and sets it on the table between them, unsigned. This time, she says, I chose you.